Verse of the day. Today's verse of the day, I want to talk about idolatry and how what I keep my eye on, what I keep my perspective aimed towards, has an effect on how I worship and what it is I'm actually worshiping. So I think it's important we ask ourselves a few questions when it comes to idolatry. So am I often swayed by circumstances or even individuals that are almost certain and subject to change? Because if I am living out what it is I say I believe, then circumstances, situations, and people should never have any ability, in my mind, to complete me. Like seriously, have I even paid attention to what and who I'm giving my power over to? I mean, if you are only as good as life is going, then are you actually flowing in the fullness and the goodness of Christ in you? Or is what you are giving your attention over to enabling your enemy the power to continue to blind and to bind you? If your direction continues to be overly corrected by the inevitability of life's changing circumstances or another's perception of you, then is the aim of your eye really in line with the will of the Father's? And if it's not, can you honestly say that you haven't allowed yourself to become subject to idolatry? And so what I'm hitting on here is the importance of introspection in pursuit of our faith, that we are aware enough that we do not fall prey to the dangers of deception from the enemy in his way. And so I have been thinking a lot about idolatry and how that relates to me in a way that I am aware enough to keep my aim straight and rightly focused on becoming just what Christ paid for. And I would argue that who and what it is I have my eye on relates to who and what I end up serving. If my eye is not singularly focused on Christ, then is it not true that what it is I pursue has its root in idolatry? And hear me when I say this. What I am unwilling to look away from is what I withhold from Christ. It is what I am unwilling to lay down and deny, and it is what stands in the way of me picking up my cross and pursuing who He's called me to be. I mean, if Christ sacrificed everything for your sake and your reconciliation and your freedom, and you were made and created in His image, purposed to reflect that exactly, what then might you think is required of you? The reception of Christ means that your life no longer is your own, meaning that you have surrendered over to His kingdom, to His authority, His will, and His throne. And yes, you have the free will to choose, but choose you must, because it is either or. Either you use your free will to surrender to a freedom from sin through receiving identity in Christ, which is a willful bonding of yourself to identity in His righteousness, the identity for which you were created and meant and made for, or you continue to submit to the slavery of a curse you were born into in ignorance to who you were intended to be, with the handing over of your will through the power you give to men, to this world, and to an enemy whose aim is that you never become this light, His light expressed through you. That is the only hope against the darkness. And if we cannot even come to the simple truth that we must lay our lives down as Christ laid down His for us, then what we are and will continue to be is hopeless. Hopelessly and ignorantly bound to and in idolatry. For a lack of knowledge is no excuse and will not preserve you from destruction. For you will serve one or the other. You cannot become what Christ paid for and bow to the world as well. Paul tells us in our verse of the day, Galatians 1:10, and it says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Paul is saying it plainly. You cannot do both and also be effectively a follower of Jesus Christ. Seeking validation through others not only leads to the discovery of, but also the creation of more empty spaces. These are seeds of futility sown in soil that has not been cultivated in any way that aims to glorify God. Pursuing the approval of another is a self-centered, lineal, and spiraling path of destruction. In the moment it may feel right, but only for a moment, as it will only ever leave you wanting, never truly fulfilled or ever really satisfied, and that's because there is no truth in it or to it, nothing lasting that holds any real or tangible value. For the perceptions of others about us are only ever imaginations, and we were not meant or made to chase these imaginations, and as we do, we only serve to exalt them above the truth. What we were meant and made for was to capture these imaginations and cast them down. And do not fool yourself into believing that the views or opinions of another are any less dangerous than the counterfeits to the truth that the enemy presents and produces as a substitute for only what God can provide. For the truth is, it is the truth in me that is my defender. And the moment I surrender to it, what I begin to produce is the fruit of His Spirit, which for starters is love, because becoming the thing that Christ paid for means I no longer seek out that need from another source other than Him. Peace and joy, because I know that the narrow path that I now follow flows not in a spiraling, but in a cylical fashion that is continually fulfilled and completed in pursuit of Christ in relationship with the Father. Patience for the sake of residing in spaces where His grace offers me a way of learning to reflect on and so reflect His nature. Kindness and goodness as an avenue of enabling me to become the very same mercy He displayed on the cross for my sake, and for the sake of reproducing that same seed in another. Faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, building blocks of spiritual stability, creating space for effectively exalting His name above my own. This fruit follows truth and is the weaponry of our warfare, coming from a foundation of identity in Christ and Christ alone. And you don't have to take it from me. Jesus tells us Himself in Matthew 6 that we cannot serve more than one master. He tells us that our eye must be singularly focused, essentially unhindered in our pursuit of becoming the thing that He would pay for with His sacrifice, which consequentially happens to be the very love required of Him in bearing the burden of that sacrifice. You see, cyclical fulfillment. If I seek approval from any other than the one who created me, then the aim of my eye is inevitably inward, and I am not looking to the one who made me and selflessly bore my shame to save me. If I'm looking to me, then clearly my eye is not single, and what I bleed when I'm squeezed looks more like the world than what should look like my Creator. And from that place, I have covered my ears to His voice and deafened my ability to hear it. For the aim of my eye is directly in line with what and who I give power to. Power to dictate who and how I am, power to determine what motivates and what moves me. This is power potentially handed over to an enemy who would love nothing more than have me deceived into believing that the pursuit of my own self-interest is worth more than the purpose for which Christ bled out His life for me. So my question to you is, where is your eye aimed right now? And through that, whom are you choosing to serve? I hope this has been a blessing and encouragement, and I hope you have a good night.